Hi, and welcome to the Holistic Health Guide podcast. I am Kathryn Berg, a certified classical homeopath, and your host for the podcast. As I promised in season 2, episode 2, today we will be discussing options beyond Western medicine, which is surgery, to help heal your liver. And if your liver doesn't need healing, keeping it healthy. I also mentioned that Western medicine has really nothing to help the liver. So, if you have problems such as difficulties digesting fat, waking up around 3 a.m., and having trouble getting back to sleep, pain under your right rib cage or on the inner side of your scapula, which are your shoulder blades, gallstones, or any of the other symptoms I mentioned in season 2, episode 2, you will be interested in this episode. And if you stick around until the end, you will get information on how to make a nice roasted veggie recipe to help your liver heal and function better. Have you ever wondered how your favorite holistic health practices really work? Are you curious to learn more? Welcome to Holistic Health Guide. I'm Kathryn Berg, a classical homeopath with over 20 years of experience. Join us as we explore homeopathy, stem cell activation patches, the Enneagram, and much more. Let's dive in and uncover the secrets and tips behind your favorite holistic health modalities. Before we get started, I want to share why I'm so enthusiastic about healing the liver. I mentioned in season 2, episode 2, that I discovered so many aging symptoms related to the liver when I was creating a course for my colleagues. But I have had my own experiences as well. Have you ever experienced, for example, aches and pains along the inside of your scapula? I have. And for a long time, I thought the chiropractor should have been able to help. But it wasn't related to the spine, it was related to the liver. Once I healed the liver, those aches and pains went away. But you know what else got better? The pain under my rib cage on my right side. Have you ever experienced that? It generally indicates an enlarged liver, which is not a good sign. A few years later, I had this mystery pain in my abdomen. It was on the right side and it would come and go. It was like in one spot. I even went to the doctor just to be sure it wasn't anything serious, and all the scans they did showed nothing. So I decided to take a liver remedy, and it definitely got better, although it remained less intensely. I eventually tracked it down to using sweeteners like erythritol and sorbitol and xylitol, which are all sugar alcohols, and even once in a while stevia. Just think what using those was doing to my liver. Needless to say, I don't use them anymore. Do you use those? Are you having digestive issues at all? Maybe that is the source. Well, we all have our own health stories, and they may have a similarity to mine, especially if they involve the liver. I recently had a client take a liver remedy based on her liver quiz and the results that came out of that. And after taking it for the specified length of time, here are her results. No more pain or pressure on the bottom of her rib cage. And that's really an important one because that's about having an enlarged liver. Constipation is much better, fewer sugar cravings. The floaters in her eyes are basically gone. And she feels like she is less light sensitive. And she feels more refreshed and rested after sleeping. You could have those benefits too if you have those problems currently. So, why is it so important to keep your liver functioning? In the last episode, which was season 2, episode 2, we discussed 10 functions of the liver. And you pretty much cannot live without those functions being conducted. Non alcoholic fatty liver disease can cause your liver to scar and eventually develop into cirrhosis. Dying isn't enough. You might actually live and suffer tremendously. Or you might end up needing a liver transplant and be on anti-rejection drugs for the rest of your life. Or you might die waiting for a liver transplant. Which is worse? I guess it depends on your mindset. There are some good natural options for liver health in the form of foods and supplements. And we have discussed some of those, and we will discuss others as well. But first, let's discuss how homeopathy can help and why you should choose homeopathy over other options. But before all of that, let's be clear. You do not have to consume alcohol to have liver issues. Remember, one of those is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That means it has nothing to do with drinking alcohol. I shared a story in season 2, episode 2, about a liver problem exacerbated by exposure to acetone. But it could also be medications. It could be toxic cleaning supplies. It could be obesity, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, high blood pressure, any number of things. The existence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease should be enough to make people realize they don't have to drink alcohol to have liver issues. As a homeopath, I like to focus on homeopathy for healing the liver. And in doing so, we use very low potency remedies and take them frequently. They are remedies that are known to have a particular affinity for an organ in the body, and we call it organ therapeutics. So why is it that this even works? Well, here's a little chart that we can discuss a little bit of. And when you take a low potency remedy, it doesn't have to match as closely. It acts more quickly, and it is generally a very physical response rather than also mental and emotional. So let's take a little look here at this chart. So right here, I have the X potency, and it says it's less exact. Ease of proving is easier, but we don't need to worry about that right now. And the speed and depth of action is um, rapid, not real deep. It will only be deep on the one organ that it has an affinity for. And the symptoms it deals with are generally physical. X potency is diluted a ratio of 1 in 10. A C potency is diluted a ratio of 1 in 100. And just even doing that means you have to be a little more exact on your remedy choice. Ease of proving is a little more difficult. The speed is that it's less rapid. Depending on the C potency, it can be very deep or it can be kind of superficial. So if it's a 3C, it's going to be more superficial. If it's a 1M or a 10M, which by the way are C potencies, it will be very deep. And it can be physical or mental and emotional. So the low potencies would be the lower numbers, really under 200 or even 200 is considered a low potency. And again, it can be less exact, easier to prove it. It has more rapid action. And although it has mental and emotional, we usually give those for physical symptoms. And then the high potency, and that would be over 200C or over 200X, would be more exact. The requirements would be that the remedy choice was more exact. Ease of proving is more difficult. And in fact, I rarely use remedies even at 200C when they are doing structured provings. There's more depth than speed. And again, these cover mental and emotional symptoms. But depending on how high the potency is, and also whether the remedy tends to have more physical symptoms than mental and emotional symptoms. All right, let's move on and look at some history. When treating a person with liver issues, especially if it is clear that the liver issues are part of the problem, I often start with organ therapeutics. This means that I choose a remedy known to specifically target a specific organ or system, such as the liver, the digestive system, heart, etc. Choosing the correct one is based on the symptoms that are presented and known to be specific to the dysfunction of a particular organ and a particular remedy. As usual, symptoms are important in homeopathy. The use of organ therapeutics all started with Johann Gottfried Rademacher. He was alive in the 17 and 1800s. Dr. Rademacher was a contemporary of Dr. Hahnemann, who is the founder of the principles of homeopathy. Dr. Rademacher started practicing medicine in 1795, and he left college rather skeptical as to medical theories. And 20 years later, in 1815, he accidentally came across a remedy which at the time was not found in any pharmacopoeia. Now, a pharmacopoeia is simply a gathering of drugs or herbs or remedies and a little bit of background information about them, like what the source is and how they were made and that sort of thing. The remarkable curative properties of this particular drug raised the suspicion that it was perhaps one of the famous remedies of the iatrochemists. And you probably don't know what iatrochemistry is because it's a very old term, but it is chemistry that is applied to or used in medicine. And it is used especially with reference to the doctrines in the School of Physicians in Flanders in the 17th century. So that's the 1600s. And they held that health depends upon the proper chemical relations in the fluids of the body. And they endeavored to explain the conditions of health or disease by chemical principles. Now, this might sound a little familiar to you because sometimes when people are diagnosed with depression, they're told that there's a chemical imbalance in the body. But the truth be told, they have no idea what chemicals are imbalanced. So, iatrochemistry is an early branch of chemistry, and it has roots in alchemy, and that tried to provide chemical remedies to diseases. And alchemists also tried to do things like, find a way to turn common substances into gold, for example. And a lot of the early homeopaths started out as alchemists. Rademacher studied the works of Paracelsus, and his real name was Theophrast von Hohenheim. Paracelsus was a Renaissance area physician and alchemist who lived from 1493 to 1541 and laid much of the groundwork for homeopathy and holistic medicine. Paracelsus thought that diseases should be named after their cures and not after their symptoms. So a disease might be a disease of Melissa or a disease of Sabina, which are herbs. Or if we're talking about the liver, the disease might be chelidonium or leptandra, among many. He emphasized the principle of like cures like, simila similibus curentur, which later became a cornerstone of homeopathy through Samuel Hahnemann. Paracelsus wrote, Nullo curator morbus per contraria, sed quod lilibet suo semi. And what does that mean, you might be asking? Well, this means a disease is in no way cured by its opposite, but by whatever is similar to it, which is homeopathy, which means similar suffering. So, context and meaning of this, in no way is disease cured by its opposite. This challenges conventional medicine's approach of opposing symptoms. For example, using antipyretics like aspirin or Tylenol to counteract a fever, or laxatives for constipation. But rather, by each thing with its similar. And what this is suggesting is that true healing occurs by finding something that mirrors the condition, thereby triggering the body's natural healing processes. For example, homeopathy uses highly diluted substances that are serially diluted and that in a larger dose that's not diluted might produce symptoms similar to the illness. Paracelsus is revolutionary in combining philosophy, nature, and medicine. This statement of his reflects his belief in treating the whole person, not just the symptoms, which echoes modern holistic health practices like homeopathy. Let's go back to Rademacher. He said organ remedies cure primary affections of the organs only, not sympathetic ones caused by another organ. And neither do they cure affections of the whole organism prevailing in some organs, says Hahnemann. Rademacher was a contemporary of Samuel Hahnemann, and eventually he practiced homeopathy as well as using homeopathic remedies for organ therapeutics. The next well-known homeopath who utilized organ therapeutics was James Compton Burnett. Burnett was an Orthodox physician who converted to homeopathy and is British. He studied Rademacher and he was also an organ prescriber. He was the homeopathic physician to Lewis Carroll, who we are familiar with. He wrote over 20 books in his lifetime. He also wrote many pamphlets about homeopathy as well. Much of our information in our repertories and our materia medica comes from Burnett's writings. So why use organ therapeutics? Well, this is what Burnett has to say about it. Where the organ ill comes from the organism and keeps on coming, an organ remedy is capable only of clearing the organ of its organismic soot. That's not orgasmic, it's organismic, so to speak, for the time being. It is only while the organ ailment is in and of the organ that the organ remedy is adequate. Also, where the ailment is in and of the organ, it is useless to attempt to cure it with high dilutions affecting the whole organism. A localized organ disease calls for a localized organ remedy, just as a general organismic disease needs the homeopathic simillimum and some potency sufficiently removed from its materiality, which means it has been potentized to a higher potency. How would one translate this quote into modern day English so it actually means something to people? It's saying is when the disease is localized to the organ itself, in this case, the liver, you can use an organ-specific remedy. But when the disease is wider and far more flung than just the organ, you need a constitutional remedy that is the simillimum. Just because it is localized doesn't mean you won't have other physical symptoms associated with the liver disease that's not in the liver. Sometimes there is referral pain to the back, for example. But when there are more symptoms in the body related to the liver, a remedy for the entire constitution, including the liver, is necessary. And there are 400 or 500 remedies like that. And so we don't forget the gallbladder and the liver are related, are almost the same organ. They are so close, sort of like fraternal twins. The point I want to make is that gallbladder and liver issues need the same remedies. As you have any comments from the doctor that you have gallstones, don't wait for it to get bad enough to need surgery. Take care of them with homeopathy. It is much easier than having surgery. Removing the gallbladder doesn't get to the root of the problem, and it can cause problems with being able to eat some of the foods which are healthy for the liver, just cruciferous vegetables, for example. So you can just end up getting into this vicious cycle of liver problems because you can't eat the food that will help prevent the liver problems because you don't have the gallbladder to help digest it. And as far as aging is concerned, As we get older, people can develop gallstones due primarily to poor diets. But you don't have to be in the second half of your life to develop this painful condition. I've had clients who had their gallbladders removed in their 20s, believe it or not. And for most, it caused problems for them and was the primary reason for seeking homeopathic care, having their gallbladder removed. Sadly, it was a little too late to save the organ, of course. The cause of gallstones is diet, plain and simple. Obviously, not everyone who eats the same horrible diet gets gallstones, so there is some predisposition to it. And weight gain is a sign and a cause of gallstones. Of course, is also a dietary issue. Here are some things you should avoid to prevent gallstones. It's important to avoid foods that can exacerbate symptoms, promote gallstone formation, or irritate the digestive system. The gallbladder plays a key role in fat digestion. So high fat and processed foods are often problematic. And remember, not being able to digest fat is a liver symptom. And if you're not digesting the fat, it could then go on to cause the gallstones. So here are some foods that you should avoid gallbladder issues. High fat and fried foods. And these include fried foods such as French fries, fried chicken, and donuts. Things, they're very hard to digest and can trigger gallbladder attacks. Avoid fatty meats, for example, bacon, sausage, and marbled cuts of beef. And high fat dairy, for example, cream, butter, and cheese. Now, you can have a little of it, but like anything, it should be in moderation. I do have cream now and again, and I do have butter now and again, and I definitely eat cheese. So I don't do it all the time, and I don't do it every day, and I try to do it in moderation, as I said. Another thing to avoid is processed foods. Packaged snacks, baked goods, and fast food often contain unhealthy trans fats or hydrogenated oils, which can increase your cholesterol. It's in the bile, it can promote gallstone formation. Sugary foods and beverages like candy, pastries, sugary sodas can all contribute to inflammation and unhealthy weight gain. And this will increase the risk of gallbladder problems. Sometimes when you have a gallbladder attack, it's simply inflammation of the gallbladder, and it isn't necessarily caused by the stones. And so if we want to make sure that we're not having these gallbladder attacks, we should change our diet. But if you're getting them frequently, time to get a good remedy. Refined, or sometimes what we would call simple carbohydrates. White bread, white rice, and other refined grains have little fiber, which can disrupt bile flow and digestion. Although white rice is sometimes easier to digest, and so you would really need to little experimenting on your own to see if a rice is best for you. Any kind of high fat cuts of beef, lamb, and pork are harder to digest and can overburden the gallbladder. So if you're eating meat, eat lean meat. Dairy products, high fat dairy products, whole milk and cream and cheese should be avoided. Or just, as I said, consume them in moderation, because we sometimes can't avoid some of those things. Don't have to have them every day and in large quantities. So you could opt for lower fat or plant-based alternatives if tolerated. I don't think skim milk is necessarily the answer. There is 2% milk. The next thing to avoid is caffeine and alcohol. We know about alcohol. It can digest the digestive system and exacerbate gallbladder symptoms, but so can caffeine. And if alcohol is consumed, it should be in moderation, if at all. Well, a lot of people think egg yolks are a problem, and I'm not sure that they necessarily are. I think there's a lot of agreement on this one, but if they seem to bother you, you should avoid them. Well, eggs are nutritious, high in fat and can trigger symptoms for some people who already have gallbladder issues. So if you really like eggs but you can't eat them, probably means you need a remedy for your gallbladder. Eggs might be safer, but they sure don't taste as good, do they? Instead, why don't you try eating these kinds of foods for gallbladder health? Aim for a diet that's low in fat, high in fiber, and rich in plant-based foods. Apples, pears, berries, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables are excellent choices. Grains like brown rice, quinoa, oats, whole wheat bread, if you're eating gluten. These can help support a healthy digestion if you can handle the lectins. That's a whole other issue. Lean proteins like skin without the skin, turkey, fish, tofu, legumes, and healthy fats such as avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil. But it's a little careful with the seed oils. Healthy fats used in moderation include avocado oil, nut oils, olive oil, and they're plant-based fats and less likely to cause inflammation. And if you really like butter, which I do, just switching to ghee, which is less inflammatory than butter. But stay away from margarine. It's horrible for you in a whole bunch of ways. In terms of hydration, drink plenty of water to aid the digestion and to support the flow of bile. Hydration helps a lot of things. But I think it's safe to say that you don't have to drink, glasses of water a day. Because that's a little bit of a myth. If you have any comments from the doctor that you have gallstones, do not wait for it to get bad enough to need surgery. Take care of them with a homeopathy. A well-chosen remedy is much easier than having surgery. And remember, removing the gallbladder doesn't get to the root of the problem. And it can cause problems with being able to eat some of the foods which are healthy for the liver, such as I mentioned earlier, cruciferous veggies. So in addition to changing your diet, you should also get a good homeopathic liver remedy to change your predisposition to gallbladder problems. You will know if you have a predisposition if you have a family member that's had gallstones and had their gallbladder removed. Might even be one of those stories that people like to tell at family gatherings. If you do have relatives like this, probably have liver symptoms and don't even know it. So you could take my liver quiz that I'll talk about at the end of the episode. Next, I want to spend a few minutes on supplements that are good for the liver and also some food that is healthy for the liver as well. There's a supplement called N-acetylcysteine, and it's a supplement that's really helpful for a number of things. It is a precursor to glutathione, which is a powerful antioxidant and detoxer. It helps neutralize cell-damaging free radicals that cause fatty buildup in the liver. It also helps promote your liver's ability to filter some types of toxins from the blood. It also protects the liver and also detoxifies the body. Glutathione can also help detoxify the body, but if you're using it as a supplement, you have to get it as a liposomal supplement or it doesn't work. Also, it has a pretty short half-life. In a later episode, we will talk about how to get glutathione working longer. And since we are discussing the liver, taking Tylenol shuts down the body's natural production of glutathione, which is one of the ways that it damages the liver. All right, the next supplement to consider is an herbal supplement, and it's called milk thistle. In homeopathy, we call it Carduus marianus in its Latin name. And here's a picture of it for those of you who are watching the podcast. You recognize it as being quite ubiquitous. We call it Canadian thistle in the upper Midwest. It contains compounds called silymarin, S-I-L-Y-M-A-R-I-N, which is a group of flavonoids that protect the liver cells from toxic substances. It also defends against oxidative stress. Make sure if you're going to take this, that you have a product that contains at least 70% silymarin. The product I recommend is 80% silymarin. There have been a number of studies on whether milk thistle can have a positive impact on healing various types of hepatitis. Largely has not been shown to be effective. However, the homeopathic version of milk thistle has history going back to the late 1800s of helping with inflammation of the liver, which is hepatitis. The next supplement is another herbal supplement, and it is one's favorite weed. Dandelions are known, as I said, for being an herbal remedy for the liver. They are rich in antioxidants and they protect against free radicals, just as the previous supplements do. It is different, however, in that it helps in the production of bile, which aids in the digestion of fat and the ability of the liver to expel it from the body. So there's another aging symptom, isn't it? We tend to gain weight as we get older. And it could be that our bile production is just not what it should be. If you're using a dandelion supplement, it should be a dandelion root, not the entire plant. Some people will use it as a replacement for coffee or tea. You can get dandelion tea. Dandelions are also in the homeopathic materia medica, and they go by their Latin name, Taraxacum officinale. And yes, they have all kinds of liver symptoms. It's one of the most common liver remedies in the homeopathic materia medica. And in fact, it was the one that I noticed had the most worry symptoms as well. Well, let's talk about foods next. Next are some foods that are good for your liver as well. Foods such as meat, fish, poultry, dairy, and eggs contain an essential nutrient called choline, and its role is to transport fat out of the liver and avoiding non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, this could be problematic and should be supplemented. Green tea is known to help people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So that's also an option. In 2017, a study also showed that people who drank green tea were less likely to develop liver cancer. This does not apply to green tea extracts, as that can actually have a negative. So just stick to a cup or two of green tea a day if that's something you want to do. Grapefruits are known to have 2 antioxidants that naturally protect the liver, but studies have not been done on just eating grapefruit. They have only studied the antioxidants, which help prevent the buildup of excessive connective tissue on the liver, known as hepatic fibrosis. Blueberries, the greatest of all the superfoods, seemingly at least, along with cranberries, have something called anthocyanins, which are antioxidants that help improve the liver in a 6-month study. Blueberries were found to inhibit the growth of human liver cancer cells in test tubes. Making these berries a regular part of your diet is good for all sorts of things. Prickly pear, which is an edible cactus, has long been used in traditional medicine to help with liver disease and other digestive issues. It might help protect the body from liver toxicity and hangovers too, but more studies are needed on that. Cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, and cauliflower are known to alter the detoxification process and protect against some harmful compounds. They're kind of smelly vegetables, which mean they contain a good deal of sulfur. Sulfur helps carry out parts of the detoxification process in the body. Other smelly foods, such as eggs, garlic, onions, legumes, which aren't really smelly, but they can create smelly things, cheese, nuts, seeds, and even wine. These should all be included in the diet. Get enough for. Now, I mentioned seeds. Want to be eating the seeds themselves, not the seed oils. So like sunflower seeds, not sunflower oil. The difference between them. And while we are discussing food, cutting back or eliminating alcohol will definitely help your liver function better. And I've mentioned it before in other episodes, but probably the biggest thing you could do to start out with. You might be asking the question, what should I be doing to make sure my liver is functioning properly? Homeopathy, supplements, dietary changes? The answer is yes to all of those questions. Changing your diet to include foods that are healthy for the liver is a no-brainer, really. You have to eat, so why not include foods that support the liver? As far as supplements are concerned, if you are eating a healthy diet with lots of variety, you probably don't have to be too concerned. But if you have a diagnosis of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, starting with some NAC would be helpful. I do have some access to some pharmaceutical grade supplements, which you can get through me on an ongoing basis at a discount. Send me an email at holistichealthguide@proton.me and let me know that you want to sign up for the discounted supplements, and I will take care of that. And finally, homeopathy. I strongly recommend this. First of all, it is faster than diet and supplements. You will start to notice improvements within a few days. Secondly, it helps with other things as well, meaning that you need a full intake and we can find help for other problems that may be going on as well. And finally, it helps symptoms that might not be helped by diet and supplements. Your liver will, over time, heal itself somewhat, but to really get the benefit, it is best to have a well-chosen homeopathic remedy. You too can have physical symptoms improve that you never knew were related to your liver. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about your liver and how you can help make it healthier using homeopathy, supplements, and diet. In season 2, episodes 1 and 2, we learned about how a dysfunctional liver can bring on signs of aging. And not just signs of aging, but actual aging. Especially, these are noticed in brain function symptoms. And in this episode, we also learned that homeopathy is faster than a diet and supplements for healing your liver. But all three are very important. But how do you know whether your aging symptoms are caused by the liver? Take my liver quiz that you can find online at www.liverquiz.com. I'll give you a customized response to your email and an opportunity to get a discount on healing your liver. Again, that website is www.liverquiz.com. And finally, what you've been waiting for, the recipe for a sulfur-powered veggie roast with liver-supporting herbs. Now, I just want to mention that I'm not going to give you the whole recipe here, but you can find it on my website easily. And I'll give you this link when I'm done going through the ingredients. So the general ingredients include a broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts because they're rich in glucosinolates, which support liver detoxification pathways. And we talked about that earlier. Onions and garlic contain sulfur compounds, which aid in detoxification and antioxidant protection for the liver as well. Turmeric is also known for its anti-inflammatory and liver protective properties. And herbs like rosemary, thyme, and oregano are rich in antioxidants and support healthy digestion, indirectly benefiting the liver. And we've also, as you may be surprised to hear, have included pumpkin seeds in this recipe too. And pumpkin seeds are high in vitamin E, which is also good for the liver. So this recipe is not only liver-friendly and full to the liver, but it's also bursting with flavor and other nutrients. And I think you'll enjoy it a lot, and I think your family will enjoy it a lot too. If you'd like to get this recipe in writing, go to www.recipes. And once again, if you want to know what sort of shape your liver is in, take the liver quiz at www.liverquiz.com. Getting your liver functioning could help with signs of aging, such as memory problems, anger issues, bladder. There's all kinds of things that your liver is responsible for in your body, and associate some of those symptoms with aging source at the liver. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you have enjoyed this episode, please rate and review and share it with a naturally minded friend. A lot of natural health information, as you may be aware, gets shared by word of mouth. Our next episode will be changing focus, and we will be talking about homeopathy and perimenopause. If you are female in your mid-40s or older, you won't want to miss it. Be sure and check the show notes for any links that were mentioned in the podcast, including the one for the recipe. Also note that there are no ads or fees associated with this podcast. If you would like to support the production of this podcast, please also check the show notes for links to signing up to work with me or other low-ticket items that become available from time to time. Your support enables me to continue making this podcast. I'm Kathryn Berg, and until next time, be healthy and happy.